Hi, this is Jason Kyo, Partner Chief Technologist with 1E. Welcome to this edition of the Tachyon Tuesday vlogs. This is a follow-on from the blog last week on the performance section of Experience. It's one of a series where we started off with stability, then we're doing performance now, and then we'll be doing responsiveness next week and sentiment after that. I'm going to say that the sentiments and opinions expressed in this vlog are mine and not necessarily that of my employer, although I think we're probably pretty well aligned. And the reason I'm saying that is that I'm going to say that performance statistics are not important. I've said it. So the reason they're not important is that a CPU can be at 100% and the end user doesn't care. As long as the window opens as quickly as they expect it to open, that's it. That's what they want. And that's what we measure in responsiveness. We'll be covering that in next week's blog. Stability, responsiveness, and sentiment, probably sentiment being the most important of those three, can each independently show you insights into things. Performance can't. Performance is also the one which is it's most ubiquitous. All of our competitors have it. It's something that is it's easy to get. It's performance statistics. Okay, we've had it for years. Performance is looking at memory and CPU and networking. And I'm not saying there's no value at all in this data. I'm saying there's no value to it in and of itself. What I mean by that is that it's how performance impacts on responsiveness or on end user sentiment, perhaps, that is important. With the stability stuff we looked at before, we could see what applications crash most often and so on. And in here, we can see some interesting data immediately. I mean, I'm noticing lots of yellow at lower levels on the screen with a bit of purple sort of matching it for CPU performance. But when it comes to memory and disk, it looks like these Latitude E5450s are just not as good as the rest of our machines. And it's good to know that. But it's actually where that overlaps with an impact on responsiveness that it really matters. So what I mean is that if we look at all of our devices here, and if we sort them from the poorest performing, we might notice some interesting things, okay? They're very stable, perhaps, some of them. They may have poor performance, but the responsiveness is better. It's where you have both performance and responsiveness low that you need to look at. So here we can see, for example, these machines, we'll drill in here, and we can see that the disk performance seems to be really poor. And again, the processor queue length isn't great either. This is important information, but it's only where we look at responsiveness and we see how that impacts the end user's experience of using the machine. It's taking longer to create files and find files on the disk. It's taking a long time to create processes. It's taking a long time to start up. The responsiveness now, I'm trying to do a vlog about performance and I can't do it without referring to responsiveness. The two things are interlinked. But it is often interesting that we'll see things, rather than this one where we can see the performance is having an impact on responsiveness, sometimes we can see poor performance metrics and they don't have an impact on responsiveness, or not a significant impact. And that's why I'm saying performance isn't so important. If the CPU is at 100% and the user clicks on the button and the window opens pretty much as it always does, that's fine. If the disk I/O is high and the user's not noticing issues when they're trying to save a file or find a file, that's also fine. Performance statistics are not that important. Responsiveness is important, for sure. Stability is important, for sure. End user perception, their sentiment, that's really, really important. Performance, it can educate us. It can help us understand better, for example, when we were looking at there a moment ago, which devices have poorer, absolute performance when it comes to memory or disk or CPU. And that can help us. We want to make decisions about what devices to buy in the future. We can look at software here and we can see, what takes the most processor time. So we see Flight Simulator, for example, takes a lot of processor time. But we can choose some different metrics. We can go and look at, processor time in seconds or I/O read or writes. These are things to do with performance and, but they're not all that indicative in terms of what's going to happen on the machine. The responsiveness impact, again, to my money, is more important. And if we look at responsiveness impact and what's having the biggest impact on things like processes launching or finding files on the disk or loading DLLs, if we look at those things, we can see that they don't necessarily have a lot of processor time taken. Again, I'm looking at responsiveness alongside performance here all the time, because it's the two things go together. The responsiveness is the measure of how well things are doing, and this responsiveness impact is what are the things that get in the way of other functions in the system doing what they should be doing. And as you can see, they don't all have high processor impact or anything like it. So it's often though that there are things like antivirus and so on that jump in just at the time that you're trying to do something. So it doesn't take a lot of processor time, but every single time you launch a process, it takes a millisecond or two to look at it. And that alongside other things it does at the point of launching a process is what impacts on responsiveness without necessarily impacting on performance. So you can look at the stats of things like EDR tools and antivirus tools and see they won't take a lot of processor time or a lot of I/O or memory. That doesn't mean they're not having a lot of impact on the end user's experience of working with the tool, which is again why I would argue that responsiveness is more important than performance. I'm going to keep this one quite short because that's what I believe. We can't really talk about performance without talking about responsiveness and maybe end user sentiment as well. And so that's why next week we're going to be looking at responsiveness and what that's all about, and we'll probably be coming back to performance as we do that. The key point here, I suppose, is, as I said earlier, the value of performance lies in its juxtaposition against responsiveness and against sentiment, perhaps. Yeah, for my money, we'll be talking about responsiveness next week, and that's where most of the value is. So I hope you enjoy the blog next Tuesday, and it'll be all about responsiveness. And thanks for taking the time to watch this vlog.